Hello everybody, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're getting ready for a great reading year. Whether you have been a member of the Hardcore Literature Book Club for a while, or whether you are a new member, I thought now would be the perfect time to have a brief discussion on how to get all the more out of our reading program to ensure that this is the best reading year we've ever had. First things first, please do download, if you haven't already, the Hardcore Literature Book Club syllabus, the schedule for 2022. It will look like this. It's a couple of pages, and there will be a link to download it in the body of this post. You may have already read it over. If not, peruse it at your leisure. This is going to be very useful because it's our map to the year ahead. It goes from January all the way through to December, and it will tell you what our big read is and what some of our other lectures are along the way. In addition to that, the document also contains an orienting aim and recommended editions for each of the books or the works on the schedule. The document also contains some principles for how to get more out of your reading, and we're going to build upon those principles and break them apart in just a moment. Before we do so, it's important to say that if you are a new member, we have a contents page, a table of contents, which is pinned at the top of your feed. The feed runs by default in chronological order, but you can order it however you want, and there is a search bar. So if you're looking for something specific, type it in and you'll be able to find it. If you want to find out about Dostoevsky or a certain topic, Emerson for example, typing that in will throw up the post. But the contents page is worth bookmarking, as it's consistently updated and ordered by big read and author. Now, there are two ways to follow along with the Hardcore Literature Book Club, and having spoken with many of you, I know that most readers use a combination of the two approaches. One approach is to follow along live as the lectures come out in real time, and to organise and structure your reading according to the lectures as and when they come out. The other approach is to deep dive into the back catalogue. We have so many videos and hours and hours and hours of content on some really great books that continues to attract vibrant discussions. To call it a back catalogue is almost to do it a disservice, because it's still very much alive. We constantly have new readers joining up specifically for those reads. Last year we kicked off the book club with a deep reading of Anna Karenina by Tolstoy, and we then moved on to Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and then Jane Austen, Hermann Hesse, we read Victor Hugo. It was a really great year. We also read a smattering of short stories and poetry. It's important to say that the lectures coming out this year can be treated as completely standalone and do not require prior knowledge. Having said that though, those readers who have enjoyed some of the books on the schedule or some of the lectures will notice that there are some ideas that we build upon and bridge out from. Now, if you haven't read some of the stuff on the back catalogue, but you find a little bit of space opening up over the course of the year, what you may wish to do is choose a hybrid approach, which is what a lot of readers do. That's where you follow along live, but you pick one of those books that we've already read that tickles your fancy, and you go into the back catalogue, and we will continue the discussion there as well. So if Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is calling out to you and you manage to get a little bit of time, then why not pick that one up alongside the live reads as they come out too. Now, this is not necessary. Self-pacing is completely key, and it's completely up to you to follow your interests. What you may find is, over the course of the lectures this year, you fall down some rabbit holes, really relish falling down rabbit holes. You fall down these different literary avenues and you wish to explore. What you'll find is that a lot of the ideas you might wish to explore are covered in the back catalogue. So do spend some time exploring the back catalogue if you get an opportunity. Now, you may not get the opportunity to read another huge book alongside some of the big books we're reading this year. Well, you can potentially dip into some poetry and some short stories. We've covered poetry by Emily Dickinson, Robert Browning, Shelley, and many more. And we've read stories by Ivan Turgenev and Anton Chekhov, and we'll continue to do so over the course of the year. There are also a couple of books that we're reading over the long term namely In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust and George Eliot's Middlemarch. So what I would like to essentially impress upon you is that you mustn't feel overwhelmed, you mustn't feel like you need to catch up. Where you are right now is the perfect starting point, and go on following your inclinations and your interests according to the amount of time that you currently have, according to what your life currently looks like. Okay, so self-pacing is absolutely key, and it's very easy to see all of these books and want to read them all immediately, to just download them all into our brain. It's very, very exciting to see a list that has many big names that one has always wanted to get into, challenging names from all over the literary world, from different traditions. This is exciting stuff, but remember that this is a long-term reading project, and due to the nature of mortality and the shortness of life, we cannot read everything. And trying to do so, or trying to read speedily, or trying to check off books for the sake of it, to say that we've read it, is a bit of a fool's errand. What we must do instead, an antidote to the shortness of life, is to really embrace a select handful of well-chosen books and to pivot into a slow pace reread and really get as much out of the work as possible. The schedule for the new year has a lot of thinking time built in and time for serendipity to come knocking. So if you find yourself with a little bit of extra time, well, there's always something new to read, but you can also read what you currently have deeper. You can reread it, you can journal around it, you can contribute to discussion. Now, that was a bit of a tangent, but all this to say that self-pacing is key. As I wrote in the document, we have different recommended lengths depending on the book or lecture series, but ultimately you know the pace that will best suit your lifestyle, goals, and temperament. So the recommended reading time for each book is simply that, a recommendation. It's up to you to fit the books around your life and your schedule and your goals, what you would like to get out of your reading. You know what will challenge you, you know what is just over your head or just outside your comfort zone. The second principle in this document is a really important one, and that is for you to be an active reader. We often talk about being an active reader versus a passive reader. Now, someone who's a passive reader will consume what's on the page passively, without putting much work in, without wrestling with the concepts, without breaking things apart, without pivoting into difficulty, and that's fine. There's a time and a place for that. But what we want, what we're searching for, is that difficult pleasure. We're searching for difficulty and accomplishment. And so being an active reader means we are participating in the game that the writers have set up. We are in collaboration with the writers. They have helped us so far, and we must come and meet them in the middle. So I wrote down here that being an active reader means engaging with the ideas on the page, and there are many great ways to do this. Marginalia is a great example. Marginalia is the art of marking your books. If you have enough margin space for your books, then do utilize it. Underline, circle things, scribble notes to yourself, and do not be shy or embarrassed. Do not think that you are blaspheming, because actually what you are doing is consecrating the book. There is no greater compliment to an author than writing down your ideas, your engagement with their ideas on the page. Imagine yourself to be a great author. What would be the greater compliment to you? One who keeps your book completely pristine, doesn't crack the spine, and therefore most likely hasn't read it with any depth, or one who completely covers it? One who sees the ideas on the page that has taken a lifetime for you to forge and put in the most perfect way possible, the most perfect way you know how. A reader who covers that page with their own ideas, that is a reader who's really revering what is before them. And when you mark your books, you make them thoroughly your own. When you look at that schedule for the year, it's very exciting because you can already see yourself having read those books. You think, well, by the end of the year, I'll have a really deep, intimate knowledge of Clarissa, Ulysses, Moby Dick, Wuthering Heights, all the best Shakespeare plays, Shakespeare's masterpieces, and that's really exciting. And what's even more exciting is getting to the end of the year and having a shelf of books that contain your soul and contain your writings on different facets of the human condition, to go back over that shelf and see that all of those books, those great books, are thoroughly dog-eared, the pages are bent, there's writing all over them. These are the books that one would go and save if there was a house fire. They'd run immediately to those books. One has definitely earned the right to be very proud of those books, and they are a physical encapsulation of you at a very specific time and place in your life. So really do engage with the ideas by putting ink to paper. If you really don't want to mark your pages, I completely understand that. What I would recommend is you get yourself a really nice journal or a set of notebooks and try to forge the habit of journaling. Again, work with your lifestyle and what you can do. Some may not be able to make journaling a daily habit, but you may be able to make it a weekly habit, one that you look forward to. You may be able to clear 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour every Sunday to sit down with a coffee and a place of stillness, put the date at the top of the page, and think back over what you've read. Maybe you put the date and you put the title of the big read you are enjoying, and you go back over the ideas that have been percolating in your mind and trickling down into your soul. You try to discern what you really think and feel about something, because we do not know what we think about a subject until we write about it. I've got a couple of my own journals here. I really love the Leuchtturm 1917 series of journals. I think the paper is really, really good quality. I also have a Moleskine or Moleskine. This is a pocket notebook. This is good for just scribbling quotes that you want to remember or scribbling down ideas. I carry this about with me so that I can immediately capture ideas that I'm excited about. I have a book journal here where the challenge is to write a very concise book review having finished the book. If you can be really concise about what you've gotten from a book, then you have really integrated the meaning of that work and taken it on. I also have a planner where I can see the month ahead at a glance, and I can see the week ahead. I think there's something really nice and orienting about scheduling one's reading for the month ahead to know exactly how you're going to make it happen. The first thing that I plan at the beginning of a week and a month is my reading and my physical activity, because I see them as being both very, very important. The body and mind are intertwined. So we want to begin the month and week by establishing our priorities, and our priorities may be to our job and to our families, but we also have a duty to look after ourselves and to indulge in a little bit of self-care too. So it's important to pre-schedule that time, that reading time, and the physical activity if possible. So scheduling is key, and it's a really good habit to establish and try to keep consistent over the course of a year. Yes, sometimes life is going to throw a spanner in the works, but if we can be faithful to a schedule that we have thought out and planned, if we can be faithful 80% of the time, then I would call that a win. Another way to be an active reader is to, when you get to the end of a page, pause. Take a moment of stillness and ask yourself what you have just read. Try to relay the actions that have taken place, the events that have taken place, the characters you have met, and try to relay the ideas you've been exposed to. Can you do it? Now, this is a difficult task and one that needs a little bit of work, just like exercising one's visualization powers and powers of imagination, but it's very much worth doing. When you get to the end of the page, ask yourself, do you agree with what the author is proposing? Maybe first you need to ask yourself, what is the author proposing? Maybe you ask yourself if you like or dislike the work. And then following on from that, you try to unpick, you try to figure out why you like or dislike a work. Maybe you wonder if you could ask the author any questions, what would they be? It's worth noting these questions down because you may be able to answer them yourself over the course of the reading experience. Now, let's talk about the value of discussion. At the end of each lecture, we have some questions specific to the work we have been enjoying. Questions for you to think about, to write about, to ponder upon, or questions that may prompt you into a different direction. Try to engage with these questions. Now, you don't have to engage with them all the time, you don't have to engage with every single one, but you might want to challenge yourself to engage with a certain number of questions per big read. These questions, they come at the very end of the post, underneath the timestamps for the content and the introduction and any other recommendations that are required. They're at the very end, and you can respond to them in the comments section on that lecture, and other readers will be able to read your thoughts and respond to your thoughts, and you will be able to read what other people have said too. This approach makes it much more likely that you will gain a deep and intimate knowledge of the work, because discussion leads to understanding, and you will be exposed to many different viewpoints from other readers who are reading essentially simultaneously with you. The questions at the end of each lecture are modelled on the questions that we had in the Oxford tutorials for English language and literature. They're also modelled on the exam questions for English at Oxford and Cambridge. They're discussion questions. They're supposed to prompt nuanced and creative ideas. Now, do not be shy about your responses to these works. Everything is valid. There isn't really a right or wrong answer when it comes to literature. What I've noticed is we have a lot of members in the book club who have become experts and are professionals in industries that aren't similar to the arts and humanities. We have a lot of logically minded, scientifically minded readers. We have doctors, we have nurses, we have engineers. The rewarding and challenging thing about the sciences is that there is often a right answer and a wrong answer. I hope that over the course of your journey reading the great books, you realise that there is something quite liberating about there not being a right answer, or there being a right answer to you, because we all see the world in different ways. And the wonderful thing about the discussion that goes on here in the book club is we get a chance to see the world, not only through our eyes and the eyes of the writer we're enjoying, but through the eyes of all the different readers responding to that very same writer. So I hope you find it freeing to indulge a sense of childlike wonder and play and imagination, a sense that we've kind of lost as we have matured. That sense of play is really, really important. So in the discussion, do not be shy. There will be no judgment here. If you've read through any of the comment sections on any of the other lectures to date, you'll see that we are all incredibly welcoming. We're all incredibly open, and you do have the freedom to indulge your response to these books, and we will take it seriously and we will appreciate it. And not only that, but it will help you get a greater understanding of the books. That discussion, that writing really helps us understand these difficult works. When we read these great books, what we're engaging in is self-talk, a little bit of self-talk and self-understanding. And the best way to understand others and to improve our communication with others, to improve our relationships, is to improve our self-understanding and our self-awareness. And that is what we're doing here when we read these great books actively and stoke discussion about them with other readers. So it's a really, really good thing to do. So I would implore you to try to write your thoughts out in any capacity. As you write your responses and your comments, please do save them. Have a Word document, a Scrivener file, a word processor, however you like to store your words, your written words on the computer. Do save them separately, because these are good things to hold on to, and you may use them or refer back to them in a personal capacity at another time. You may wish to write a book review for each and every book that you read. It can be long, it can be short, it can be however you want it to be. I would implore you to refrain from simply summarizing the story and to speculate on the themes that you have gotten out of the book. But save your work, and hey, maybe you want to write by hand, that's good too. I love writing by hand. I personally use a clipboard and a legal pad and pen, and I also use my journals when I'm writing. So do leave comments, musings, insights, questions and ideas. It makes the community experience, it makes the communal reading experience all the more valuable. There is something really rewarding about reading a certain amount of a book, having some thoughts about it, but then being able to scroll through and see what other perceptive readers have said too. This is such a rewarding experience. It's quite a nice thing to do, to regularly check in, maybe with a coffee or a tea, and scroll through people's comments and see if anything resonates enough for you to respond to another's comment. Let's go on to the fourth point in the document, which is rereading, slow reading, and deep reading. I will read what I have written here. If you tear through a book because you've fallen in love with it, then use the lectures as an opportunity to revisit your favourite passages. Our first read of a great book is just the beginning. We meet the characters, learn about their concerns, spend some time in their world, and aim to return again and again. Slow reading and deep reading allows us to bring lived experience to the work. Live the great books means using your personal growth in the world to unlock these books and vice versa. Deep reading is the philosophy of following literary rabbit holes. History, philosophy, psychology, art and science open up to the reader who wishes to suck the marrow out of their books. Again, self-pacing is key. Some readers are very, very slow. I fall into that camp personally, naturally. Some readers are very, very fast. If you speed through a book and there are still lectures coming out, then do revisit your favourite passages. There is a lot of utility to finding those books that speak the most to you and aiming to reread them as much as you can over the course of your lifetime and see if they still hold up. Part of the rationale for the books on the schedule is that we are giving you as many opportunities to put you in a position to fall in love with an author as possible. These are the authors that readers, when they come to them with a lot of care and attention, are most likely to fall in love with. Now, does that mean we'll fall in love with each and every one of them? No, we may detest certain authors, we may detest certain topics, certain books, but we are putting ourselves in a really good position to find that handful of writers that really reflect our soul and our concerns, those writers that we find ourselves in simpatico with and would like to develop a lifelong relationship with. And the thing about rereading, something you'll find the more that you do it, is that which you originally found difficult or confusing will come into startling focus upon rereading. Now, it may just happen that by virtue of reading the whole thing and then returning to a certain passage, that idea is illuminated, or you may just bring lived experience to the things you didn't understand before. That's why we want to constantly reread the great books, because very often if we don't get a book, it might have something to do with either we've already firmly had the experience detailed in the book and it's a very long time ago and we don't need to learn that lesson, or perhaps we haven't learnt that lesson yet. There's something really extraordinary about reading a book at a certain age, not quite getting its impact or power, and then many years later giving it another crack and finally getting it. Now, the book is all the better for that first initial read where we didn't get much out of it. So we need to constantly reread the great books. If you think there's any potential whatsoever in a book, in one of the books you have before you, to be really highly resonant at any point in your life, then do make the conscious, inward aim, make the decision that this will not be the only time you read it and that you will use the work as a touchstone over the course of your life. And of course, we are bringing what we've learned in the world to these books, but we're also bringing these books to the situations, the things that we have to deal with in our life too. It's an opportunity for self-growth and learning. Following a reading program that is aiming at self-development, self-growth, self-improvement, self-love and self-care means that immersion is key. So try to get as much out of your works as possible. If you finish a book and you find there's a filmic adaptation, why not watch it? Why not watch it and flip through the book simultaneously and try to find how they've adapted it? If there's a stage version and you fancy a trip to the theatre, or you can go to the theatre, then why not? If a character mentions a piece of music, why not search that music out and listen to it a few times and see if it holds the key to unlocking even more meaning from that work? If a writer mentions a particular painting, why not search out that painting? Okay, this is immersion, and it's a really valuable way to approach our books in a way that will leave us significantly better off by the end of the year. Without a doubt, everything that I have ever done well is thanks to immersion. Now, immersion doesn't mean 24/7. And it doesn't mean that all you do is think about the topic, but what it means is you integrate it and make it part of your lifestyle. If one wants to improve their cardiovascular health, then there are different core habits and key activities that they can do as part of a lifestyle. Whether that means looking up what the best running shoes are, whether that means researching and investigating into the best supplementation, whether that means spending some time on a Sunday sketching out the approach for one's athletic activity in the week ahead. It means you incorporate your goal into your life as fully as possible. Anybody who has learned a new language knows that this is the best approach, rather than having classroom time and study time and then closing it off, to have a lifestyle that involves one using the language that they are learning. And this is very much true for the great books. So we want to journal, we want to get our resources together. Perhaps when we are on the move, we want to listen to audiobooks and start to amass an audiobook collection. Immersion is key, and obviously another great way to immerse is to constantly talk about what you're reading. And this is why the discussion at the book club is such a strong foundation, such a great cornerstone for our reading program. So it might be a good idea to use the lectures as an opportunity to revisit your favourite passages. Of course, you could structure your reading according to the lectures. If a lecture deals with a certain amount of chapters, you might find it useful to make it your aim to read those chapters before the lecture. The ideal situation would be to read first, then use the lecture as a rereading opportunity, and then do a little bit more rereading with journaling built in. Maybe go back over the notes you've made, the things you've underlined. That's a good rereading practice. My final point in the document is for you to enjoy the ride, and I say that you will fall in love with some books and writers and struggle with others. It is often the most painful experiences that afford the most growth. So relish the challenges of being a reader of great literature and continue living these great works with gusto, curiosity, and love. I love those three words: gusto, curiosity, and love. This is the mindset to get oneself into when approaching a book, and you can typically find that you will be able to inhabit one realm at least, one realm more than another, and if we're very lucky, all three simultaneously. So I really do want you to enjoy the ride, and enjoyment doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. In fact, I want you to relish any difficulty you come up against, and there is a lot of different kinds of difficulty. There's the surface level difficulty of language, there's the difficulty of theme, there's emotional difficulty. There's a lot of different difficulties, and we want to continuously challenge ourselves. And by the end of the year, we will feel a sense of great accomplishment as we look back over those books that we have made our own, that we have deep read. And each book encapsulates a certain part of us during a certain time in our lives. When one really brings their whole self to a particular work, that work is forever entangled with the first reading experience. When one reads Anna Karenina for the first time, one is immediately thrown back to where they were at that time and who they were. When one reads Moby Dick for the first time, they are returning to the person who they were when they first read that great book. And these are books that we make our friends and we revisit over the course of our life, and they continue to give us insight and comfort. And I would like to end this video here by saying congratulations and well done to you for deciding to undertake this ambitious deep reading program, this deep communal reading program. This will be one of the most beneficial things that you can ever do for your quality of life and for improving your self-talk, your self-love, and your relationships with other people and the paradigms through which you see the world. So well done. It's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we have an absolutely wonderful community here, of which I'm very thankful you are a part of. Thank you for watching. Good luck on your journey. I will be with you every step of the way. Thank you for being here, and happy reading. Bye-bye for now.